department line, of where we are for those expenditures through the year.
Okay. Questions, Mr. Black? Mr. Seeley?
I guess, Mr. Chairman, what the intent was just to figure out where we were at the last month to see what expenditures, what percentage we were at before we get to 100 at the end of June 30. And I guess there's a couple that sort of beg a couple of questions. The CSA fund, for example, ends 30 May because their budget cycle is different than the county budget cycle.
Social services ends then. I'm not sure whether CSA ends when social services ends or not. I thought that ran through June 30th.
For their accounting purposes ends May 31st, but for our accounting purposes ends June 30th. And as a matter of fact, we also have to carry over payables for them for 2 months after June 30th for social services and CSA.
So it doesn't end 31 May.
For their record keeping, yes, but for our record keeping, which is what you see in your budget and everything else, it is June 30th.
Okay.
The state changed that years ago and moved their state budget for social services back a month, but all counties still look at it to June 30th on their books, and especially for CSA. It's the state system. It's the state part of it, where all of their accounting goes into Richmond, the Thomas Brothers part of the system.
Who are the Thomas Brothers? Do I know?
It's a software that you report all the state stuff that social services uses to report all their stuff back to Richmond.
Okay. I guess that was my question because we keep talking in social services in terms of the end of the budget year being 31 May. So all the numbers we see frozen at our next meeting will be the end of the year, yet, I'm looking at 73%, which doesn't necessarily reconcile with what I see on the social services side.
They report their budget year different. The state switched them June 1st to May 31st back before I went to Middlesex, sometime in the 80s or something. They came up with a different count. The federal government works October 1 to 30 September. So state social services works on a different calendar than local government and the rest of the state. The rest of the state budget ends June 30th. So it's just a reporting issue, but we look at their money that we deal with on our regular June 30, July 1 to June 30 time frame. We budgeted that.
Okay.
So what you see here is the way we're accounting for their money. They report their budget ending May 31st to the state, but they still got to operate in June. So it's just, as far as the state's concerned, they're operating in the next calendar year. We just haven't gotten there yet. Okay. There was a reason for it that probably shifted some money to the locality back when they did that by heading. Yes.
That was probably what happened.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Underwood?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Akers?
Yes. And we're talking about CSA, even with, and I realize CSA is one of those categories that you never know what's going to happen in the last couple of months. But based on what we've spent thus far, we'd still be about $200,000 under what was budgeted.
But this is, no.
I'm sorry?
Yeah. I can tell you we expect to be over budget for CSA.
So you expect May and June to be
based on
heavy
encumbrances. We're projecting to be over, and we'll have to come back as part of the amendment of the current year's budget and add local funds into the CSA budget.
How about the Caroline Utilities Fund? Why are we so out of balance on that? Is it because of debt retirement or something?
As in,
Well, we
50,
year-to-date
55%.
Yeah.
when we originally did the Caroline Utilities budget, we were planning on Caroline Pines being on by the 1st of July. We were planning on the wastewater plant being on by January the 1st. And the water master plan is in there that we have not, the board has that on hold at the moment. So those costs, Caroline Pines didn't actually go on until October, and the wastewater plant isn't on yet. So we had budgeted things to be a little bit quicker than what they actually turned out to be.
All right, this is expenditures.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, where's the $4 million?
Do what?
Where's the $4 million? The difference between the 8.2 we have budgeted and 4.5 we spent. The rest of the money is still just sitting in the general fund, waiting to be spent.
And is that part of the $8 million that we're supposed we have left over in income?
Well, you wouldn't have gained revenue from Caroline Pines coming on. So we had revenue in the budget starting July 1 that didn't.
These are expenditures.
I know, but there's not.
But I
We
don't have the
budgeted. We
corresponding
don't have any
revenue.
revenue to match it, so it's not. There's not money sitting there
Oh.
for the months that Caroline Pines didn't exist. So there are some things that we anticipated to spend while bringing the sewer plant online. We would have had some employees, so we do have some money that we did not expend on employees. But a lot of that expense for bringing Caroline Pines on was a revenue that we lost. So we actually lost money by not bringing them on. Not made it.
Can you tell us what the net result is on the Caroline Utilities Fund? Because you talked about the water master plan. That probably will get done before July 1. I don't know
that's
whether it's
gonna-
in next year's budget, whether it's in
We're
next
gonna-
year's budget.
It's
We're
going to be
gonna
rolled
we're
over
gonna
to
roll
next
it
year's
next
budget. We're going to bring that back to you all as part of the year-end budget amendments to ask that to be rolled over.
So is it included in next year's budget that we just approved? The master water?
No, sir.
No, sir.
But it's in this year's budget. We're not going to spend it, so we're just going to ask that it be.
How much was that? Do you know?
I do not know.
Can we have a net result as to
That kind of sticks in my head.
but would like to see what the net result is.
That's a good point, because we lose them, we didn't get revenue, but subsequently we didn't have the expenditures, but $4 million is a lot of gap. We had $4 million less in revenue?
It might be a little bit confusing because if you remember, you all approved to get rid of the due to froms, so part of that is an accounting issue. Believe me.
I'll
Just
wait.
believe
I'll
me.
wait my turn. I'll wait my turn. Mr. Akers?
Yeah, but you two from, so are you talking about the monies that we sort of forgave
Yes.
as far as penalties are concerned, and everything?
We haven't done anything with penalties.
No, the
What do we do?
due to and from was the county having $6 million from the utility fund.
$4 million.
$4 million. Well, it was 6 and it went down to 4. Right. We had $4 million from the utility fund. We were waiting to get paid, and we just said, okay, it's our money. Boom. But that shouldn't be in here.
It has to be accounted for. I had to show it as a transfer, so the
Okay.
utility fund will have it as a revenue, and the general fund has or vice versa. Vice versa.
But that's a 0-0. This is 0-0. So forget that. Where's my $4 million from the utility fund? 8.2. We spent. I mean, am I right? We spent we budgeted 8.2
Well, I thought we
million.
resolved this when we did the board action.
The due to from?
The due to
Yeah,
funds was supposed to be.
I don't ever want to hear about them again because we finished that. And you're right, we resolved that, so we shouldn't be talking about that. I'm talking about budgeted amount of 8.2 million.
But I had to amend the budget for it. The budget went up.
So the budget went up
Yes, sir.
for an
The-
expenditure or for revenue?
Revenue. And if it goes up for revenue, I have to raise it for expenditure.
So that $4 million is in here in this particular line item? Yeah.
You have a transfer in here on the Caroline Utility Fund for $2.989 million, which you did not have before. And it has to do with part of the transfer transaction that I had to do to wipe out the due to from.
So I have a transfer of 2.9. I should also have a expenditure or a revenue to offset that transfer.
I have a revenue in the general fund that, and, I'm
Has nothing to do
getting
with
myself confused.
Okay. Well, we're gonna give
I have
you-
to show, because of the way that
Okay.
the $4 million work, I'm actually showing, and it's on paper here to make your budget balance. Because you have to have, even for the utility fund, it has to be a balanced budget.
Okay.
This is a paper exercise to show this going into a fund balance in the utility fund, which will not happen because, as I say before, the only thing that goes in fund balance is difference between actual revenues and actual expenditures, not your budget. But to make your budget numbers balance, I had to show 2.9, almost $3 million going into the utility fund balance, which is not going to happen because
Ms.
it's not
Hatcher,
there.
I want to believe everything you said, and I think the rest of the board does too. I'm going to admit that it's a little bit late at night, and I'm going to promise you we are going to put you on first thing at our next board meeting to explain it, okay? You can put a spreadsheet together too, but I get really irritated when I can't find my money, okay? And that's just my personal money. So
Well,
now I'm looking for somebody else's
I did
money.
have to amend the
I'm really
budget
irritated.
for
Okay.
that transfer. And that, I think that's what's misleading, because if you see the original budget didn't have that $3 million in it. It's in there because I'm showing it as going into fund balance, which in actuality isn't going to happen, but to make the budgets balanced, I had to do that.
Okay. And if you keep that same thought, I'm gonna ask you, where's my $600,000? Either way, because 600,000 is 5.1 minus 4.5. I'm gonna look for that money too. But either way, you can explain that later. I'm gonna let Mr. Akers finish his question.
Yeah, I finished my question.
Okay. Mr. Taylor, did you have something? I don't know. Okay. Then I have just one last one for you. On this particular sheet we have, the school budget is $41 million, 41.387, right?
Yes, sir.
And they have spent 32,247.
Yes, sir. They're only through April.
They have 2 months to go, and they have $9 million in the budget, right?
Yes, sir.
And there's very little school in here. Okay. And that one's straight, right? Okay. We just want to crunch these numbers. And that's
Yeah.
all we're asking is how to crunch these numbers. You tell us what they are and why they are, and kind of explain the last one because the budget amount went up. Gotcha. Okay. We're good. All right. That's just kind of where we are so we can see where we are getting close to the end of the year. On another note on that same thing, I've asked Mrs. Hatcher to put together something. All the board members should have the sheet that Mr. Cully and Mrs. Hatcher put together on our fiscal year budget. And I asked this question in our school board meeting. We actually transfer $11.6 million for operating funds for the schools and roughly $4.2 million for debt service, including buses. So our grand total of school expenditures this year is 15.8. That does not include anything for the new elementary school that we're doing with the $6 million or the other $3 million that we borrowed. So that's a key thing we need to, I've asked Mrs. Hatcher, I know I know she has certain ways to present the budget, but I think when we look at the budget and talk about how much each agency or division gets, we need to include everything. So I've asked her to do that in the future, if that's okay with the rest of the board. It's also got a list of the sheriff, just includes his vehicle. And maybe we should allocate money for school buses and sheriff vehicles in their own budget so they can make the determination of whether they should get more or less. It's not up to us at the end. We will still do the capital projects, but I think it would be good to see what a given department spends for everything, and not have, in this case, $5 million of debt that looks like the county borrowed that debt, and that's per year of debt service. So,
Mr. Chairman?
yes, sir.
On that note, too, that's one of the reasons why I was asking about the radios. I mean, as far as the radio financing and so forth, I mean, you can take that money, whatever we're financing, and break it down to, you know, the schools, the sheriffs, break it down.
Right.
So that way we should do that as well. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I think we need to see more of what each department costs, each agency costs, and what we invest in. So that was it for that. All right, that was actually it. Mr. Cully, that was the end of agenda item 8. Ms. Hatcher, thank you very much for all the work you did to get that together. And I mean, nothing personal. We just count on you, so we ask you where it is. It's not like you're hiding it somewhere. Well, we hope you're not hiding it somewhere. But we just want to make sure that we, true. So we should talk to Mrs. Curran about where it is. All right, Mr. Cully, you've got potential PRTC membership as one of your
Mr. Chairman,
information. Oh, I'm sorry.
we actually did skip over agenda number 8.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we did 7. Agenda item number 8 is additional discussion of spending cuts. That was you, Mr. Cully.
We prepared the list of
Along with.
proposed reductions and showed you what they were, what the largest ones were, what totaled up to that $155,475. Listed proposed reductions.
How do you feel about the changes, Mr. Black?
Well, Mike, you know, in the summary that staff had put together, they had talked about some of the cuts would actually be more costly because of overtime issues and so forth. And I'm completely on board with. I don't obviously want to cut money which is going to cost us more. I mean, I completely understand that. My concern was that we had discussed it. We had discussed the 150,000. We discussed coming down to 80,000, and then it was not, for whatever reason, it was not put in those budget cuts. So, you know, the board, we can discuss this a little bit more, but, you know, like on the one thing that I identified, if you look on the second page, subtotal data processing equipment, they're for 29,000. That's like a big ticket item right there. I don't understand where you were, that number, I guess I was a little confused on that. Is that one number for everything? Or
Yeah, it is. It's $4,943 in the treasurer's office, $900 in finance, $14,005 in the sheriff's office, $7,400 in emergency services, $2,200 in animal control, along with the savings in buildings and ground equals the $29,943 that we proposed to cut. It's pretty much all of our IT, other than the AS400. And our AS400 is 8 years old. We just do not feel we can cut that. If that dies, we will not be collecting any revenue or assessing anything, doing anything. So we really need to move forward on leasing the new machine this year.
Got to wait for that.
Plus, you got to read.
You might as well buy it. Hey, your radio works, doesn't it? Inside. Silly.
Mr. Chairman, I was just looking at the proposed cuts, and I will say that if the county administrator says that, you know, this can be done, I know that we talked about this in session about making these cuts, and I don't know what happened, but I don't have any questions.
Okay. Had coffee. Bakers?
I guess my concern is we're making cuts to, I thought at one time we were making cuts in order so that we didn't want to raise taxes. Raise taxes. I think we all know that we received additional revenue that we had not anticipated. That would be after about the time the budget was wrapping up. I'm just not sure whether these $79,000 cut, and I do see some things in here that we could probably cut out, $15,000 or $25,000, maybe $30,000 is not going to have an impact on what happens. But subtotal health insurance, I'm assuming that that's because the health insurance premiums are going to be less than what we had anticipated in the budget.
No.
I mean, why?
No,
what
the
is
health
that?
insurance is completely due to the Affordable Care Act, where employees working more than 30 hours a week are to be granted health insurance if they so take it. And if that employee happens to have a family plan, that help me with that number, $11,000 a year, $15,000.
Well, what's 23,000? Is that an increase? Or
That's
is that
what
a
we're
decrease?
proposing to cut.
They're gonna
Try
cut
to-
it.
Well, I mean, how can you cut it if you're mandated to do it?
Because
Why
they're not
do you do
gonna.
it?
We're
they're
going
not
to try to
gonna
hire
have
more
people working
employees.
30
We're going to try to hire some more employees.
Instead of having you work 35 hours and
You're
get
gonna work
insurance,
29.
they're going to hire another person to work those last 5 hours, so you're not over 30, and then no insurance for you and no insurance for the other person. Which I think we're kind of,
They're really good employees.
yeah, we're kind
We don't wanna
of
do it
working
anyway.
with the spirit of the law and
Oh,
not the
absolutely.
letter of the law. So
The
We heard
total,
people
the
that-
total cost we anticipate was $73,000 for that additional insurance. That's additional insurance for people working part-time. Doesn't have anything to do with the premium of the full-time people we
Okay,
currently have.
but again, for the most part, part-time people are going to be, I assume, going to be at the sites and places.
Fire and rescue.
Okay, fire rescue.
We have a lot of part-time hours in fire and rescue. We're hoping that they're already working full-time other places, but that's not all of them. So, I mean,
they got radios.
So that's $23,000, then $29,000 on data processing, and we talked about $14,000 from the sheriff's department. I heard that number come out.
That's-
What is that we're proposing to cut out?
upgrades to various computers, laptops, various things that they wanted. I'd have to go back and dig around in his budget request to see. They had justification for the things that they needed at the time. I don't remember what they are, but it's all of his IT money. Increase. It's an increase. It still has some, but it's all of what was an increase this year.
So the lease for the AS1,
5-year lease.
Mr. Taylor?
Well, I guess my only concern is, I look at the cut, I don't really know the specific impact. I can read numbers, but I don't know what it does to the individual department. But one of the things that concerns me is, I just don't know what kind of message they're sending to the department. If you, and I know what staff is doing because we asked them to do that, so you get the gas people. But, we encourage departments to be frugal all year. And then at the end of the year, we look at it and say, well, you didn't need that much, so you start taking money from it. I have a concern about that, especially in this year. Our unencumbered balance, if it's right, is more than, I've been here 18 years, I've never seen an unencumbered balance like the one that we have. And yet and still, we are rewarding those people. Well, you may not have it long, but if you're doing better than you ever did, why would you then go back and take money from departments, from people? I don't understand. I mean, if you encourage people to do a good job and you encourage them to be frugal in their spending, and when they do that, you wait until the end of the year and you go back and take money. I don't understand.
Mr. Taylor, can I make a comment to that? This is, the whole idea was not to go back at the end of the year and cut. This was something when we were doing budget cuts that I had requested be put in at the time, not something at the end of the year. I have no problem dropping this, but this is not something to say that I'm saying this to bring up the cuts now. That is not the truth. So don't say that I'm going back and doing this at the end of the year.
Okay, well,
that was
I
something
know-
that we discussed during budget season.
Well, we
Thank
did,
you.
but we asked at our last meeting, if I'm not correct, we asked, look at the department in our last meeting, and come back, look at where they are now.
Combining 7 and 8. Seven we just did was look at everybody's budget and see where they are.
Right.
Just to identify things like, why is there $9 million still in the school budget? Why is there $4 million in such and such? We can't account for it. We finished that. Now, this is a reevaluation of the budget process for next year of things that we said we were gonna cut but didn't actually happen. So these things for next year's budget.
Okay, so we're not gonna cut 75,000?
That's for next year's budget. That's proposed by the county administrator as what the board members ask for. Now, the board members can say at any point in time, okay, maybe we don't need to cut all of this, use your best judgment, whatever. That's up to the will of the entire board. But Mr. Black and I, supporting Mr. Black, said, get us a list of what those cuts would be since we said we were going to do them and basically drop the ball. So we can drop the ball again and say, we're not going to do any of this. Look at it here and say, we'll do it. That's up to the entire board.
Mr. Thomas, I have just one other comment.
Yes, sir.
Is that, in the budget process, we had originally agreed to a 5% increase in the water rates, which amounts to $125,000 roughly.
$100,000, but we didn't agree to it.
No, we didn't agree, but we had in the past agreed because we were told by Mr. Schiebel that our water rates are substandard. We're not eligible for any grants as long as our 5,000 gallon usage is under $31 a month. And we did not go forward to increase the water rate, so that we're going to spend additional money from the general fund on water. So just to put all the cards on the table, we are still at the point of not where we thought we would be in the budget for what was proposed.
And we still have the request from social services for 90,000, easy math, that we haven't addressed yet. So there are some other things out there. We did see some additional revenue. It's probably close to a wash right now. But
Mr. Chairman, I'm not saying that we need to look at approving the $155,000. I'm not saying that at all. But I do believe when we talk about health insurance, cutting about $23,000, almost $24,000. We're doing like other people are doing. I understand that. We are cutting people back to 29 hours. But a lot of those people, making 30, they're making almost minimum wage, a little above that. And so they're not making any money to begin with. They do not have insurance. And I just think we're hurting the people that we need to be looking at and helping.
that's a message. That's without a doubt a message. And I think we are working around the law. And I mean, I'm not blaming anybody, but if somebody tells me this is the rule and I save more money by doing something different within the rule, that's fine. But I think you're right, Mr. Akers. That's a message we're sending to people. We're going to say, we're going to cut your hours back so then you don't have insurance. And I would, I for one would say, let's go ahead and add the insurance back in. You know, because we got people out there that, I know personally how it is. They need insurance.
Absolutely. I just people want to be I never know that. If you don't help them, they're not going to be able to help themselves. The other area that I really question is, are we hurting ourselves, and you know this better than I do, Charlie, are we hurting ourselves by eliminating all of the data processing equipment in the various departments as to, I mean, if that's the case, why do we want to? Why do we want to scrap out departments, substandard software, what have you? Do that job. Again, I understand Mr. Black, and I think this entire board supported what he's wanting to do. But I just think if you go back and look at it, there's probably some areas that suggested cut probably cut. Additional part-time employee with registrar, $4,000. Saying it includes $2,000 travel expense decrease. I have no problem with $2,000 travel, but if we're going to give the employee, give them a part-time employee, one that part-time. You need to cut the entire $10,000 out. Cut the
Mr. Chairman, I can understand this. I can see this doesn't have the support. I'm going to go ahead and drop the motion to going to go ahead and drop with a request to cut. I mean,
It's not a matter of support. You had the right to bring up what the board said they wanted to do, and just like we did in the budget process, we brought it up. And, you know, we've asked staff to address what we said we're going to do. Just like the budget process, if we want to say, okay, take this out, take that out, or leave it all, we can do that. If you want to, you know, if you want to say you'll, you know, the board withdraws the request to look at this and suggest the county administrator uses judgment on where he can change, that's fine with me. We can do either one. But there are some things I'd vote against. Pulling out data processing, I'd vote against changing health insurance, and that's what, 40,000 of the 70,000?
Oh, about 53,000,
Oh,
something like that.
50,000.
Yeah.
at that point, you're at $17,000 a cut.
Yeah, and
I mean, and so that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
It's not even.
All right.
It's not even worth
Is
it.
that a consensus? That's all we did during the budget. So consensus, Mr. Tully, is we're gonna not have any cuts there unless you see something, you know, that you can work with. All right? And that's the philosophy. Okay. We are finished with agenda item number 8. We did 9 and 10. Agenda item number 11. We talked about the potential membership in PRTC. This was actually an agenda item, but we didn't have enough information to make it a real agenda item. So it's basically informational. Are you going to do it or Mr. Fincher? Or you want me to do it? Because I can do the Reader's Digest version and we could come back and go on. All right. Board members probably got an email from staff that says there's basically $6 million worth of potential revenue in the 2% gas tax that would be levied from PRTC. That sounds like a great number. We don't know how much the actual cost of joining PRTC are. I think it was $49,000 5 years ago, and it's close to $65,000 now, just regular membership. But there are fees that go with it. So what we need is the board to direct staff to write a letter to PRTC requesting that we join. And when we make that request, then they will give us more information about what it costs to join, and we can make an intelligent decision there.
And as well as I can recall, Mr. Thomas, you certainly here as well, 2005 or 6,
Yeah,
when we
something
looked
like
at it, was the fact that there's a negotiating process that goes on there as well.
That was actually 2007, because it was an election, so that was an issue. Okay. So is there a motion to have staff move forward and inquire about joining PRTC?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr.
Let me just throw something else out there. You know, the $1 billion that the Hampton Roads area is looking at for the 2 tunnels, the 2 tolls and the new tunnel, have been deemed unconstitutional and they can't do it. So I've had this discussion with Bobby Ork about PRTC, and if we do indeed decide to join, the potential of losing our state roads money is very high. And I'm not sure that on the backside we're going to end up with much more, because PRTC has sort of a mind of its own. We would be by far the smallest locality in that organization and probably the easiest to take advantage of. So I would just, knowing that money has been deemed the way they wanted to allocate it unconstitutional, and the state looking for more money, I'm just real reluctant to stick our head up too far until they decide on that, because I think those dollars are going to be looked for in other places.
But I guess my question is, this may be a source to replace some of that money, because if they're looking for ways of filling that gap, they're going to cut our budget anyway. They're going to cut the state funding for roads in the counties anyway.
And Northern Virginia is going to look for a way to replace their funding, and they're going to come to us, they're going to come to every locality in that to say everybody's got to pony up more money, so the net sum gain could be actually negative.
But it's my understanding, again, we need to know more
We're
about
gonna,
it, to
yeah.
be honest with you.
I mean, this is debate we should have as we get more information. Because I think you bring up a good point. We may lose some of the money we were expected to get, but before we even get to that, we need to know what the actual costs are PRTC. And the negatives of, joining another agency, or basically, being in a partnership with different counties.
Well, we
We're
just said
small.
we didn't want to be a partnership in a radio system, so being in a partnership for transportation is probably even going to be less advantageous for us since we're the smallest by or a quarter of the size or less than every other locality, maybe 10% of the size of every locality.
Fredericksburg part of this PRTC.
Fredericksburg has got,
29,000.
and they have no voting authority. Talk to them. They've got one vote,
Yeah.
and Northern Virginia's got everything else, and they dictate what happens. I mean, I've listened to them.
And they don't even have any interstates. Right. So.
Well, that's not
Fredericksburg
true. They've
has
got
one vote.
95.
Every
Because
locality has
Central
a
Park
vote.
is in
Oh, yes,
Fredericksburg.
yes, you're right. It does go through, yeah. Okay.
Every locality has a vote.
Okay.
One vote. Well,
Yeah.
I think everybody has one vote, but then you've got a member of the General Assembly, one or two members of the General Assembly that sits on there from the Northern Virginia area. And I believe there may be somebody from transportation. I'm not sure.
There is. Okay, well, we can have, I think this is going to be an interesting, fun discussion to have after we get some more information. Mr. Fincham had said earlier he was going to try to get us the information by June 11th. So if there are not a lot of public hearings for June 11th, we can address it then. We got 4 public hearings. We might want to do that in July. To move forward. Yeah, I'm not. So I still need, Mr. Akers or whoever, I still need a motion to formally direct staff to inquire about membership in PRTC.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we do ask staff to, direct staff to look into and investigate membership into the PRTC.
Is there a second to Mr. Akers' motion? No second? Okay, Mr. Taylor makes a second. Discussion, Mr. Seeley asked, why do we need a motion? Because PRTC has said they would like something in writing before they give us all the information. Mr. Fincham didn't feel like he had the authority to work on behalf of the staff, on behalf of the board to make that inquiry, so he wanted direction from the board to do that. I think that's good enough. Okay? No other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. So that
Nay.
motion. Motion passes 5-1. Mr. Seeley votes nay. And we'll have discussion. We'll look at discussing that in July. Because we got 4 public hearings in June. And we should have all the information. Okay. You have some other public announcements? We'll do closing board comments.
We do have that animal shelter dedication and open house on Saturday, June 8th. They've done a lot of work down there.
I talked to the sheriff. I'm going to attend board conference. Cats and dogs. All right. Okay. Closing board comment?
None.
None? Seeley?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, some months ago, we talked about actually having the YMCA donations actually put up on the website. And months have passed and that hasn't happened, and I was hoping we could revisit that since that was sort of requested and talked about. That's all.
Do we have, find out where we are?
Underwood?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I've been silenced.
I'm going to have to block you. Mr. Akers?
No, sir.
Mr. Taylor? All right. We talked about the Emergency Services Commission. We talked about. We need to talk about radio system management now that we've at least gone forward with radio system. Who's going to manage it? Where's it going to be? Probably the county administrator's office should manage it, so there's not an issue with sheriff versus fire versus schools and all that. But we need to, as we've discussed before, talk about somebody that's going to be the administrator. And the sheriff has said he didn't have, his staff was stretched. He thought he could do it, but if it's stretched, why stretch him more? So we're going to look at something else. And I'm going to ask Mr. Cully to look at that. All right, that's it. No closed meeting. All right, motion, we need a motion to, you're kidding. We need a motion to convene a closed meeting pursuant to consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff. Exemption, section 2.23711A7 of the Code of Virginia to discuss specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by counsel involving the enforcement of numerous continued zoning violations in the Four Winds Campground. So is there a motion to that effect? Second?
Second.
I knew it, Mr. Steele. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. We will be in closed meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we come out of closed meeting.
Second.
Aye. I so certify.
Mr. Chairman, I so certify.
I so certify.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Aye.